Hi, everyone. My name is Cynthia Ruiz. I am a professor, best-selling author. I am a leadership expert, a commissioner, and a mother and executive coach. So I just wanted to reach out and have this segment called Chatting with My Neighbor. And I know that right now it's a challenging time for everyone. So the other day, I ran into my neighbor, who I'll introduce in a minute, and we started having this conversation. And how are you dealing with the challenging times right now? So we wanted to just give you some advice on how you can better deal with these challenges. And the challenge I'm talking about is really isolation and staying home. So I'm really excited to introduce my neighbor. Yes, she's my neighbor. I've known her for over 30 years. My neighbor, Elena Durazo, is a civil rights activist. She's a warrior of the people. She's a labor leader. She's an elected official. Yes, she's my state senator. She's a mother of two amazing young men, and she's a grandmother. So help me welcome my neighbor, Maria Elena Durazo.
Hey, hi Cynthia, good morning.
So, Maria Elena, let's just jump right in. How are you holding up? And I just have to say to the people that are watching, you have been home because I go walking every day and your car is there. So you've been home. So how are you and your family dealing with all this stay at home stuff?
Okay, hold on one second. I gotta grab my glasses.
Not a problem. So when she's grabbing her glasses, I do want to say that I don't think we've ever seen anything like this in our lifetime. The United States probably hasn't seen anything like this since World War II, which was 75 years ago. So most of us were not around. And we did go through a blip at 9/11, but this is probably socially the most challenging thing the United States has ever gone through. So now that you have your glasses, talk to me.
Okay, well, I'm really glad when I bumped into the other day, we were talking about what are we doing personally for ourselves. And usually my reaction when there's a crisis in our country or there's a crisis in our communities is to jump into the political arena. This is the first time where I feel personally um, in somewhat danger. I think all of us are thinking, how do we keep ourselves safe and healthy? But this is the first time where I ever felt that somehow my family, my granddaughters, my neighbors, all my different friends were in some sort of danger because of this virus. And so it's really unusual for me to think on all those different levels, and not just the political or the economic, but now what about me? How do I take care of myself? And it's been hard, but at the same time, I feel like we have to jump into it with as serious as we can, but still finding those light moments, still finding those moments where we can communicate with each other, and have a good time, remind ourselves of our humanity, of our spirituality, but not ignore one or the other. We sort of have to do different levels.
So my first recommendation is stay connected. Now, my way of staying connected is very much different. My life has turned virtual. I'm doing my meetings on Zoom. I'm doing happy hour with my girlfriends on Zoom, training on Zoom, and my mother, who is 87 years old, is in a boarding care home. I'm FaceTiming her. So my connections are so important, but it's now virtual. Now, you were telling me that you've been picking up the phone and calling your family and friends.
Right. Well, I'm barely learning this Zoom stuff. I've heard of Skype in the past, so I must say that this is for me. This is a kind of a new world because I always left it to other people to figure it out, and then I didn't have to learn it. So right now, I'm trying to figure out with my son and daughter-in-law and granddaughters, how are we going to, which application are we going to use? Are we going to use Skype? Are we going to do Google? Are we going to do Zoom? So we got to figure it out. Meanwhile, we're just calling each other, sending pictures. My granddaughters are great. Just checking in with each other and having a good time, especially with pictures. My granddaughter came up with a really funny picture that I thought was hilarious. So they've got time on their hands. And then I have a whole connection with my siblings. There's 7 of us plus nieces and nephews. And so we're continuously texting each other on this group text. And it's funny. And at the same time, you know, we can get sad, but it's really, I've never depended so much on those kinds of connections to be in touch with family. So though whatever you can learn, we're going to have to learn this new world. Please learn it now. Take advantage of all these possibilities.
So I know you have 2 granddaughters. How old are they?
Yeah. So Sydney is 9 and Seneca is 11. And they are quite different in their personalities, quite different with what they like to do. Sydney is very hands-on. She's very crafts, work, very, very hands-on. And she's great about that. And she's got like all kinds of energy in doing that. She likes to actually clean and do chores, that sort of thing. The other one, Seneca, beautiful sort of spiritual world. She loves to read. She sits in the corner and reads for hours, laid back. Don't ask her to wash dishes because she don't want to get into that. She's just a really, really different from each other. So I love checking in to see from their different points of views, what are they doing now to deal with this? And so far, so good. They're staying busy in the kind of things that they like to do.
So my next tip is to stay grounded. It's hard right now. There's so much chaos and craziness. But one of the things I recommend is keep a schedule. Because we can't control our lives on the outside and it's so chaotic, we can control our time during the day. So I like to keep a schedule. I wake up at the same time. I go walking. I don't turn on the TV until 8 o'clock at night. For families, it's a good time to say, okay, every night at 6 or 7, we're all going to have dinner together. So how are you keeping a schedule in this craziness?
Well, it's actually, I had this attitude before about, when you work remote, I thought, oh, that's a very laid back way of doing your work. Not at all. I am working more intensely, more hours at home, and in a very different way. It's a different kind of intensity. When you do things face to face, you have the opportunity to really chat. You mix in a little bit of comfortable way of doing things and business. This can be extremely stressing if you don't, like you said, incorporate into your day a very specific time to do things. I look forward to dinner time because every day I have been cooking dinner, and I haven't cooked this much in a really, really long time. But for 10 days in a row, I've cooked dinner. That's unusual for me, but it's really good. I love it. And I'm not a good cook, so I look up recipes and I'm learning this and that. But in my day, I look forward to that. It's almost a moment that I could, in a way, relax from all the other things. And then I might have to go back and do a conference call, but that's a time in the day, a block in the day when I really look forward to it.
And so what's your favorite thing to cook?
I haven't figured out my favorite thing, but I'm doing seafood, I'm doing pastas. And like I said, they don't turn out to be the the thing that I would submit in a contest, but it is fun. It is fun to try to come up with the next meal. This morning, I haven't gone shopping and grocery shopping in 10 days, but this morning I went to the 7 o'clock opening because 65 and over, we have special hours. Yay! And I did shopping hopefully that'll last for another 10 days. I haven't bought this much food in a really long time. I tend to eat out more, but that's the upside. We can come up with things that we normally might not do because we're forced to do, but it's good. It's really good for us.
Well, I'm not quite at the 65-year-old and
Of course not.
I don't get to take advantage, but you were saying that potentially that could be something for the future, right? You never know.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They should give us special hours. We'll make that a permanent law in California. But Cynthia, if I could, also I want to add, I don't know if I mentioned to you the other day, I want to give kudos to people like Allison and Stephen, who live down the street from us, who took the time to type up a leaflet and offer their time. They put their address, they put their phone number. And I called her the other day to, thank her and offer my services. If somebody needs food, if somebody needs a ride, needs something to be picked up. And I just think that's a really wonderful side of our humanity. And I want to do a shout out to the two of them for taking the time to do that.
Yes, and these are neighbors, because I got the same note. These are neighbors I have never met before.
That's right.
So I really feel that on the very local level, the communities and neighbors are coming together. So there is some positive things in this craziness. So thank you for sharing that. The final thing I wanted to talk about is education. And I really think it's important to control your content. And what do I mean by that? Do not sit in front of the TV 24/7 and watch the news. Yes, of course, it's important to stay informed, but you want to actually mix up the content that you're getting. Right now is a great time. A lot of the colleges, all the way from Harvard and Yale to everybody, is offering free online courses. Now, if you took a free online course at Harvard, wouldn't that look great on your resume for when things start getting back up? So what are your thoughts about staying educated and controlling your content during this time?
I think you're absolutely right. I think I would go crazy if I just was watching the continuous feeding from television. And it's good content for the most part. There's nothing wrong with what we get, the information that we get through the TV, but here's an opportunity, like you said, to add on to what we already know. Reading a book that, have been piled up there, maybe sneaking in a movie, but mostly I think it's take advantage of the time. Cook is a way of educating ourselves. There's so many subjects that I'm sure everybody's thought about. If I had time to do it, now's the time to do it. And I think we need to balance out all the information that's being handed to us. And our tendency would be to just absorb from the TV. But I would say, just pick things that you would like to do that you otherwise would not have done. And I think that will be much healthier. I do think that we have to not forget the basics of our cleaning, our hand washing. Before we really got into the lockdown, I started doing some of that. And one of my sons kind of rolled his eyes. And I said, sorry, I would rather you roll your eyes at me because I know this much. We've got to keep ourselves healthy mentally by mixing up the day, healthy, physically through our washing, all the things that we're not overdoing it. if we do it for our health and for our community's health. So I'm really glad we're having this conversation, neighbor.
Okay,
Usually,
neighbors,
usually just wave.
I know I have a few suggestions. So on
Okay.
Hulu, I actually watched the documentary on Hillary Clinton. Now, it was very interesting. It was very real, and it was very informative. And I really think she's somebody that's really going to go down in history as empowering other women. And then the other thing I saw on Netflix, I saw I think it was C.J. Walker, and it was a story about the first female African American millionaire and how she built up her business. So there's a lot of great content out there. Do you have any recommendations on Hulu or Netflix for our rest of our neighbors and community?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that one about Walker because a friend of mine recommended it. I think we could do things yesterday, would have been the opening day at Dodger Stadium. And so I was able to sneak in there one of the World Series games in 1981 that Fernando Valenzuela pitched. So, wow, I remember the exact game, but that's another thing to catch up on some of the things if we're into sports. There's documentaries like that. I think there's even access to Showtime without being charged for it. So, there's a number of the different companies I think are making these programs or shows or movies available to us that we otherwise would have had to pay extra for. So I say just look it up and scroll through all these possibilities.
Well, there you have it. I've been chatting with my neighbor. My name is Cynthia Ruiz, and my neighbor is the one and only Maria Elena Durazo. Thank you for your time, and thank you for watching.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good day.